Welcome to Stoner Watch. Today we're talking about WandaVision Episode 4. We interrupt this program. Stoner Watch, a YouTube story, men and women t-shirts and coffee mugs, now available at Teespring.com. Help support the show by getting yours today. I'll have a link down in the description. Wow, man, this episode was just so damn good. I mean, I really like this episode a lot. Now, we shift gears a little bit this week by getting a little backstory on Monica Rambeau and a different perspective. We find out what's been happening on the outside of Westview. Man, I gotta say that Matt Shakman has just been killing it as the director so far. And we have a runtime of 35 minutes. We have Bobak, Esfarjani, and McDonnell as the writers for the episode this week. Okay, let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right into all the spoilers and theories and all the things that go with. First up, we have some new characters, starting with Randall Park as FBI agent Jimmy Woo. Now, the first time we meet this character is in Ant-Man and Wasp. Next, we have Josh Stamberg as director Tyler Hayward, a high-ranking sword operative who became the acting director after the snap and Monica Rambeau's death. And then we have Kate Dennings coming back to reprise her role as Dr. Darcy Lewis from the Thor movie franchise. Now, this week we find out, or rather confirm, that Captain Monica Rambeau is an agent of S.W.O.R.D. and was one of those who returned to life following the blip. It is upon her return she unfortunately finds out her mother Maria has died of cancer. A short time later, Monica returns to work and is sent by acting director Tyler Hayward to help FBI agent Jimmy Woo with the missing persons case in Westview, New Jersey. Now, I thought this was interesting for several reasons. One, we find out the exact location of Westview being in New Jersey. At least I don't remember it ever being mentioned before, but I could be wrong. And we find out that Monica Rambeau, just like Peter Parker, was one of the many people that fell victim to the snap, thinking they were only gone for 5 minutes, to find out they were actually gone for 5 years. And we find out where this show falls in the timeline for the MCU, taking place shortly after the events of Endgame. Things get weird when Rambeau meets Agent Woo and the local sheriff's department on the road leading into Westview. After talking to the sheriff, who insists he's never heard of Westview and he's from the town of Eastview, Rambeau sends out a drone that suddenly disappears as it reaches the town's city limits. They discover a strange hexagonal static field surrounding the town, which Monica is accidentally pulled into while taking a closer look. Within 24 hours, S.W.O.R.D. establishes a base around the town and tries to send drones and an agent in to investigate. We also meet a group of scientists, including a nuclear biologist, an artificial intelligence expert, a chemical engineer, an astrophysicist. Dr. Darcy Lewis is asked to study the phenomenon, and it is Dr. Lewis who discovers the broadcast signal for the sitcom WandaVision. They use the episodes to observe the events inside the town and learn that the real residents have been cast as the characters in the sitcom, and they see Monica has disguised herself as Geraldine. Darcy and Jimmy unsuccessfully attempt to use the radio to contact Wanda.
Can't you hear me?
I don't think so. Keep trying.
Wanda. 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 Who's doing this to you, Wanda? Wanda, can you hear me? I'm here to help.
When Monica mentions Ultron, the episode cuts to the ending. Darcy believes that someone is censoring the broadcast, but that's when they find out that Wanda has cast Monica outside of town. After a furious Wanda throws Monica out of town, the sitcom illusion slips and Wanda sees Vision appear as he did when he died. Horrified, she restores the illusion. Meanwhile, outside of Westview, Monica confirms that Wanda is behind everything. Like I said before, I liked this episode a lot. I thought it was pretty damn good, and I thought it was pretty cool to see the events of this show from a different point of view, because in this episode, we got to see what it looked like from the outside of Westview. You know what I mean? I wonder if it's safe to say that the red and yellow helicopter that we saw in episode 2 was actually the drone that Monica sends in this episode, because it pretty much was the same color scheme, because we saw a lot of other drones that S.W.O.R.D. was sending into town, but it didn't look like that they had the same color scheme as the drone that Monica had. Is that just me? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Something else I thought was pretty interesting, and I have to admit, I did not notice the several times I've watched this episode getting ready to make this video. Actually, it was pointed out to me by one of my online buddies, Obi-Ken Winobi, that after they used the facial recognition software to identify the residents or the cast members for WandaVision, the only one that was not identified was Agnes. Now, there's a lot of people online that believe that Agnes actually is Spoiler alert, just in case, Agatha Harkness, a skilled witch who in the Marvel Comics trains and mentors Wanda in using her powers. The show has yet to explicitly indicate that Agnes is really Agatha outside the sitcom world, beyond the name Agnes, which would seem to be the obvious nickname for Agatha Harkness. I could be wrong. Another thing that we find out in this episode is the beekeeper at the end of episode 2 is actually Third Agent Franklin. And I kind of wonder, after Wanda resets the show at that point, what happens to Agent Franklin, right? I wonder next week if we're going to see another episode of WandaVision or we're going to see another episode of what it's like to be on the outside of Westview. Or maybe a combination of both. That'd be pretty interesting, huh? But I guess we'll have to just wait and see. Now, while this episode does answer a lot of questions, I also believe it raises a whole lot of more. So did you watch the new episode for WandaVision? Did you like it? What'd you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was pretty damn good. I thought it was pretty interesting to see it from a different point of view, from like the point of view from everybody outside of town, as well as like what we've seen inside of town. Now, I think that Rambeau got off pretty damn lucky because the look on Wanda's face when she was asking her who she was and where she come from, her getting thrown out of town was like her least worries. I mean, considering how powerful that Wanda seems to be, where she's controlling almost 4,000 people, the whole town, and nobody even knows that this town is even missing. I mean, that's something else. So she got up, getting thrown out of town, she got off kind of light as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.